Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia and today I'm doing the Name Game book tag. It looks like this tag was originally created by Kimberly's Book Nook, but that since then the video has been taken down, so I will not be able to link to the original video in the description, but I was tagged by Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and I will definitely have her video linked down below. You should go check it out. So the premise of this tag is very simple. Basically, all you have to do is recommend a book that corresponds with each letter of your name. So to start off, my name starts with an A, and I picked Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. This is a cozy mystery book that revolves a lot around food, and it follows a woman as she is working in her aunt's restaurant, trying to save this failing restaurant. Local food critic comes in who also happens to be her ex-boyfriend, and he dies after eating food at this restaurant. So obviously the investigation into what happened and what's going to happen to the restaurant now that this happened. This book is very good. I loved it so much. It's very cozy and it feels very atmospheric, and it was just really well done. So first recommendation, Arsenic and Adobo. Next is L, and for this I'm going to recommend Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. This is the second book in the Diviners series, and the Diviners series is a supernatural series that takes place in New York City and follows a couple of different characters, one of them being Evie O'Neill, who gets shipped off to New York after getting in trouble, and she gets shipped off to live with her uncle, and she just wants to make sure no one finds out her deepest secret, which is about her supernatural powers. The setting of this book is honestly one of the things I enjoyed so much about it, which is 1920s New York City, and the characters in this book are so well done. Honestly, throughout the whole series, I just thought the characters were very well developed, and they felt like people who could have lived at that time, and it just felt very real. This book is listed as young adult. I feel like it kind of bridges the gap between young adult and adult, like the higher end of young adult / maybe new adult, as I believe the characters are maybe 17 or 18 at the start of the series, and then as time progresses, obviously they get older. Next is I, and honestly the only book I could come up with for this is I'm Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. I've had a lot of people after my most recent video that talked about this say they want to read it, so I'm just going to recommend it again to make everyone want to read it even more. This is a book that follows a teenage boy. I believe he's like 18. This is another book that I feel like is listed as YA. I do not think this reads as a YA book. When I read this, I was like, there's no way this is a YA book, because the character is a teen. I think he's 17 or 18. But the subject matter of this book and the way it's handled did not read YA to me. Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is, this follows a boy named John Wayne Cleaver, who has all the tendencies and desires to be a serial killer, but does not let himself, and his religion is making sure he doesn't become a serial killer. And then one day people start dying in his town, and he needs to figure out what's happening. This book is honestly so good. I remember it being so good. It has been a few years since I've read this book, so I don't remember everything that happens, and I honestly want to reread it because I remember binging through this trilogy in less than a week. I think I read this book in one day, and then I took a couple days, and then I read the next book in one day, and then I took a couple days, and I read the last book in one day because I was enjoying this series so much. Next is S, and for this I'm going to recommend Something to Talk About by Meryl Wilsner. This is a romance book, which is not something I normally read, but this is a queer romance book, and I loved it. This is about a woman in Hollywood who is a very high power producer, a very well-known producer, and one day she's walking down the red carpet, and the tabloids catch a picture of her assistant whispering in her ear, and they start running wild with the rumor that these two women are in a relationship. It's very good. This was one of the only romance books that I've ever read. Romance is not something that I typically reach for, but this book was very good. And if you like romance, or if you like queer books, something to talk about, definitely for you. Next is H. This is by far the hardest one, honestly. So I was pretty hard, but I'm not a serial killer to go back to. H, I've read like 3 books that I've ever recorded that start with H and don't have like a the before. Like I can't do The Hunger Games because it technically starts with a T. But what I did pick is Hunger, a memoir of my body by Roxane Gay. This is honestly the only Roxane Gay book I've ever read, and it has been a couple of years, so I don't remember everything about it, but I remember just devouring this book because of how open and honest it was, and how relatable in some of the things that Roxane Gay talks about that I've dealt with or have known family members who've dealt with, and just like almost how seen I felt reading this book in a lot of ways. This book talks a lot about body image and eating disorders, and it talks about sexual assault and how everything was handled. I really appreciated. And honestly, this book was just really well done. And I think it's something that more people can relate to than honestly should be able to. If you are into memoirs, and especially if you have dealt with any sort of eating disorder or been body shamed, I feel like this memoir would be a good one to pick up. And lastly, the final letter of my name is another A. And for the first A, I really didn't want to go for a book title that was A something. But I can't make it through a whole video without talking about Becky Chambers. I've made it my life's mission to make everyone read Becky Chambers and the Night Circus. So I'm going to recommend A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in the Wayfarers series, and it's very good, and you should read it. The Wayfarers series starts with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and in that book we follow Rosemary as she joins the crew of a tunneling ship, and as they go on this really big job, she ends up getting more than she bargained for, and we get to meet lots of aliens, we get to see lots of alien culture, and it's just so good. And one of my favorite things about Becky Chambers' writing and her stories is a lot of this is just humans being humans and doing good human things. And it's kind of like, it's sci-fi, but it's kind of like the soft sci-fi because it's not overly scientific. There's not lots of description into how the spaceships work or anything like that, but you get a lot of just humans being good. And it's just makes for a really good book, and all of the books in the series that I've read have been really good. So if you haven't yet, definitely pick up Becky Chambers. Start with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but then move on to A Closed and Common Orbit. So I'm going to go ahead and tag Shelley Swearingen and Katrina Reeds because I just want to see what they do and what books they can come up with for some of the letters in their names, like a Y and a K and an N. I'm just intrigued. So I'm going to go ahead and tag those two. But also, if you want to do this tag, consider yourself tagged by me. And that was the Name Game book tag. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you would recommend to me based on the letters in my name. Or if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!